I'm Natalie Wilmot, and I'm the author of Language Management, From Bricolage to Strategy in British Companies. My motivation for writing this book was really to look at the field of language-sensitive international business from a different perspective. Over the past 25 years, we have learned a great deal about language use in organisations and international business contexts, but we have tended to focus on large multinational corporations and inter-organisational relationships. And I was interested in looking at smaller businesses, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, and looking at what they do in their external relationships with customers and with suppliers. There's also the fact that there is an assumption that it is sufficient for British businesses to be able to rely on using English in all their interactions with external parties based overseas. And I wanted to investigate if this was the case or if there was something else going on. It became immediately obvious to me throughout my research that although there is a very heavy reliance on English amongst British organisations, in fact, there is a lot of creativity in the use of other languages, and these are particularly important when working with certain key customers. So what I noted as a result of this research was really the sheer diversity and the creative practices that were used in the way these SMEs approach language diversity. In addition to traditional approaches, such as, for example, language-sensitive recruitment, hiring people with specific language skills, and the use of professional translation and interpreting services, I also noticed that these companies relied on personal networks to a greater extent in order to acquire language skills. They used external resources such as university student projects and working with bodies such as Chamber of Commerce. For example, one of the companies which I worked with was a very small organisation of 3 people, and they were an online retailer. They quickly realised that they needed to have their website professionally translated in order to reach their target customers because they were working with the end users of their project. But what they then discovered was that this caused them a problem because overseas customers would see the website in multiple languages and would assume that the company was able to communicate in these languages, and so would call them up and find that there was no one there who could actually speak in these language skills. So the company was very creative. They had vocabulary lists hung around the office in different languages, French, German, Spanish, for example, so that when somebody rang up, they were able to say to them using these vocabulary lists, "I'm sorry, we don't speak French or German. However, if you could write us an email, then we'll be able to read it and respond to you in writing." And the reason why they encouraged email communication was because they could receive an email from their customer and use Google Translate in order to understand it. They then tried to mirror the language the customer had used to then send a response back to them in that language using Google Translate, but also grammar tables and dictionaries. So this was a really, really creative way in which the company tried to manage language diversity as a very small organisation without its own internal language resources. One of the other things that I also noticed was that SMEs really mainly encounter language diversity in external relationships, so corporate language policies are not particularly appropriate for them. What they tended to do as a result of that was take a very emergent rather than planned approach to managing language diversity. In many cases, they were using language resources that they had acquired accidentally for other purposes and then deploying them in order to take advantage of the fact that they had acquired these skills without intending to. For example, another company that I worked with for this project were looking to hire a French speaker to take care of the French market. The person they hired was a Polish individual who also spoke French and English. As a result of this, after spending a couple of years working on the French market, they asked the individual if they could also see if there would be potential for the Polish market as well. And as a result, Poland became the second largest export market for the company after France. This was completely unintended. This was not a strategy the organisation had ever had to target Poland, but they had recognised that they had skills which then enabled them to work in this market that they could take advantage of, even though it was not their original intention. So in the UK, approximately 99% of businesses are SMEs. And it has been suggested in previous research that a lack of language skills in the UK really has a hugely significant and detrimental effect on the British economy. So my research shows that all businesses, even the very smallest ones who are based in an Anglophone market like the UK, can benefit from embracing language diversity.